Pakistan with us. Welcome. We're also pleased to have with us Dr. Mirza Iftikhar Beg. He's a member of National Assembly of Pakistan. We will be joined by a few of the more parliamentarians, but as we all know that there is a session currently going on, so there will be definitely some delays. But we're very also pleased to have with us some of the very key energy, climate, economic experts, especially Shahjahan Mirza Saab. Shahjahan Saab, thank you so much for joining us. He's the former Managing Director of Private Power Infrastructure Board, PPIB, at the Ministry of Energy Power Division. Now, before we go into the discussion, just perhaps I'll take a minute to quickly set the agenda for today's discussion, and also a little bit of the background that it's almost been a year when Embassy and SDPI jointly initiated this project, and the basic idea behind that project was that how climate change can actually be made a part of Pakistan's economic, fiscal, and the development planning. And the whole theory of change that we actually had was that we really need to do a lot of these consultations, as well as the knowledge sharing, as well as the capacity building workshops with both the federal as well as the provincial energy as well as the planning departments. And based upon those consultations as well as dialogues, SDPI published a number of research outcomes as well as reforms agendas that were forwarded to all the very relevant key government bodies. And beyond that, we also did a number of consultations as well as workshops with the rural communities. We did these workshops with the people, and also kind of try to come up with reforms that can be as inclusive as possible. So now, coming to the point that we actually have today, we do have the federal budget here being debated, and the key tests of where we actually have progress will be discussing today. So just three main questions. I mean, we all fully understand that Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change. So where does Pakistan stand today on bringing climate into the heart of its economic as well as the budgetary planning? And I mean, how far we still have to go? Secondly, what would it kind of really take to move climate from the margins of the budgets to its core? And again, not just talking about merely the numbers, but how we plan, prioritize, and make decisions based upon what we actually commit within the planning documents as well. And lastly, who carries this forward. So with this, we will go to the formal opening and the scene setting remarks by, and for this, I'll invite Dr. Abid Qayyum Suleri for his opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ubaid. Honorable Dr. Mirza Iftikhar Beg Sahab, very seasoned parliamentarian, very business person, honorary Consul General of Yemen, Pakistan in Karachi, and most importantly, the member of National Assembly Standing Committee on Economic Affairs. Excellency Ms. Mortensen, Ambassador of Denmark to Pakistan, dear colleagues, climate change and energy specialists present here. I think it's indeed a great pleasure to host this meeting, consultation, looking at the federal and now as the provincial budgets are also out, looking at provincial budgets as well, to understand how this climate consideration is addressed through these finance bills, not only the federal government's finance bill, but also the provincial government's finance bills as well. And within that, one has to understand that this federal budget was prepared under two IMF programs. The one program is basically Extended Fund Facility Program, the standard IMF program under which we have to take different measures for macroeconomic stability and fiscal consolidation. And the second is IMF's program on resilience, sustainability, resilience support fund. And that actually asks government, and where government has committed not only to do the climate tagging in the revenue expenditure in the federal budget, but also to increase allocation for disaster management and disaster preparedness, and to look at the way water can be conserved, especially the monetization of water and the renewable energy component of it. Now, you would find that these commitments, they are reflected in the both at provincial as well as at federal level. On water, the major change is in Punjab's budget, where rate of Abhyana, or the water usage for agriculture purposes, that has been revised for both for irrigated as well as non-irrigated lands and orchards. This is something which is in alignment with the RSF. Again, looking at the allocation for disaster preparedness and disaster management, one can see the federal government as well as provincial governments, they have allocated resources. One thing where we see the government facing a huge challenge is how to balance energy. On one hand, under the extended fund facility program, government is asked to pass on all the cost of energy and reduce the capacity payment charges. And then under this RSF, government is asked to promote renewable energy. And at times, it seems a policy contradiction, a step that government takes to reduce capacity payment charges. That step actually then leads to discourage solarization and solar panels and solar metering. But one positive step that government has taken in the federal budget is on an experimental basis. The first pilot project for connecting for the grid level storage in batteries would be initiated in Jimpir. I think that can be a game changer. While the federal government has reduced its allocated budget for climate change at federal level, the positive step is taken by Punjab government, which although has reduced the budget for health and education and agriculture, but has increased the budget for climate change and environment. And I think that is a bit positive step. I must acknowledge the provincial constraint right now. They have to give grant to federal government under Article 164. And of course, making cushion for that grant would mean compromising on some of the social sector development. And that's why you would find that annual development plan for all the provinces is shrunk. In case of Sindh, it is exactly the amount that Sindh would be contributing to federal government. In case of Punjab, it's much higher than what Punjab government has actually committed with the federal government. KP, one has to follow and one has to see. We have seen some statements from KP Finance Minister and Chief Minister. Perhaps there are still some resolvable issues before KP would comment on providing grant to federal government. And this is the broader, I think, macroeconomic and political economy situation in Pakistan, under which today's discussion would take place. We also need to keep in mind some of the geopolitical and macro picture. The subsidiary body meetings, SB 64 meeting in Bonn every year in June, which actually finalizes the agenda of discussion for the following COP, has just concluded. So COP 31, which would be held in Antalya in November, its agenda is finalized in Bonn earlier last week. And the signs are not very promising on climate finance and on adaptation funds for adaptation in Bonn meeting. So we are talking of climate consideration and climate budget in an era where both at macro and micro level, both at global as well as at national level, the funding for climate change is getting shrunk and restricted, while the challenge of climate change, they are increasingly increasing. And that's where we will learn from our distinguished colleagues, and of course, we'll get educated from Dr. Beg how Parliament is taking up all these issues. I'll conclude my longish welcome by thanking the Embassy of Denmark in Islamabad for their continued support in greening Pakistan's economy and taking Pakistan's climate resilience agenda forward. Over to you, Abed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abid, for mentioning the constraints under which the overall planning is being done. And also, again, there are a lot of steps within the forms that we've introduced. So I think with this, before coming to Dr. Beg, let me invite Her Excellency, Ms. Maya, for her remarks. So thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us.
Oh, it's right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here. Really great honor and privilege to be among such esteemed parliamentarians, most notably Dr. Bach here. And a great pleasure to meet you again. Look forward to your interventions. It's really a sign of all the the experts and the parliamentarians here that in this very busy time you're taking some time out of your schedule to be here today and discuss the topic of climate and mainstreaming climate concerns into finance and budgets. Also acknowledging the powerhouse of SDPI for organizing yet another today consultations in collaboration with us at the Danish Embassy. We have a long-standing and close relationship, and we really value that. And it's the first time I finally made it to your offices today. So after many engagement through Karachi and in Islamabad and different locations, I'm really happy to be at your offices here today. And thank you so much for your leadership and professionalism and organizational for these things. I will not give any opinion on the budget. Just to say a few words on why what we're discussing today is important. You'll be discussing mainstreaming climate considerations into Pakistan's economic and budgetary planning. And I think, as many of the experts here know, the issue of climate change and sort of economic environmental protection has often taken place in sort of a silo. It has been about climate change, changing weather patterns, raising temperatures, and all that. But I think it's quite clear today, governments across the world are acknowledging that climate change is indeed an economic, a fiscal, and development challenge, which actually affects nearly all sectors of the national economy. So I think what you'll be looking at here today, you will not be alone. I think this is something, including my own government, that are looking very much into these days. This challenge of integrating or mainstreaming the climate concerns into economic decisions. And I know that there are some very compelling arguments that the experts from SDPI will be presenting later. I've seen the presentation before. It's really a powerful. There's a big economic argument as well as the climate and development argument. So it's really. I think the diagnosis is there, so it's more about the policies, which is why we're here today. Because. As you all know, the way that a country or a government sets the priorities of the direction they want their country to go in is one of the most the tools of where you set what you will prioritize is through the national budget. That's one of the most effective and sort of tangible ways of saying what you prioritize as a government. So I guess it's very timely, and that's also why you guys are very busy these days, that you're deliberating on the budget these days. So it's an opportunity to bring these issues forward and strengthen the integration of climate considerations into planning and budgeting process. And one important point, and that's a little bit, coming to our own experiences in Denmark. I think it's really important to say that interventions around climate resilience and climate change is not about choosing between development and or economic growth and climate action. It's about ensuring that these things go hand in hand. And this is something that we have some experiences with in Denmark, where we have managed to integrate and taking some decisions about investments in renewable energy, supporting policy frameworks, strong public-private partnerships, where we integrate the climate priorities. And we have done this in a way that we also sort of, if the economic model fits with it. So there's a synergy between climate action and economic growth. So it's just to say, it's not that taking action against climate change should be a costly thing. In the best of all worlds, it goes hand in hand with development and economic growth. So this is just to say we have some experiences and also would like to share with Pakistan, and in a sort of a mutual exchange of experience, because Pakistan, with the climate change development here, you have a lot of experiences as well, and I think every country have to chart their own path. So just concluding to say that, as the Danish Embassy, we've had extensive projects on this issue, and we continue to be committed to this dialogue, how we can exchange on the climate issues and broader on green transition and so on. We remain committed and look forward to the discussions here. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Excellency, for highlighting the significance of integrating and also sharing the examples we have from Denmark to Pakistan. Now, just like you also mentioned, SDPI actually have been working on it, advocating for it, communicating around it, the theme for almost more than years and year into this project. But we do have a presentation for which we'll come a bit later. But let me firstly invite Dr. Mirza Iftihar Beg sir for his interventions. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Abid Suleri, my very dear friend, very eminent economist, and a great supporter of climate resilience program, Pakistan. I'm sorry today is a very heavy day because we are finalizing the national budget. For the last 10 days, day and night, we worked out to finalize our report from the committee, Standing Committee on Finance and Revenue. So the session is going on. So I'll beg leave after my presentation to join the voting formalities required at the National Assembly. I welcome His Excellency the Ambassador of Netherlands and a very valuable remark. What I'll be discussing with you straight, very practical, very up-to-date, few hours before, some figures which we have concluded and finalized about the climate resilience sustainability program. When you look at, like Abid Saab said, that Pakistan is the worst hit and most affected country of the climate resilience, climate change. I still remember Shari Rahman, our parliamentarian, has presented Pakistan case very effectively for the first time, and that was a wake-up call. That was a wake-up call for all those who was there, and a huge sum of about $9 or $10 billion was pledged. But I'm very sorry to say that out of that, not much was contributed. And it's still in the form of the announcement. Pakistan is working from their own resources, 3 programs to meet the challenges of the climate resilience. First is we impose carbon levy, rupees 2.5 per liter on petrol, madam. And everyone, my driver, my houseboy, whosoever travel in rickshaw or travels by motorcycle is paying the sum from their hard-earned money. And this is proposal was to enhance it to 5 rupees per liter, which is just the double. And this is for the carbon levy is for the climate resistance program, including the carbon credits. And we are working on a very comprehensive agenda of claiming carbon credits because Pakistan is still one of those lowest emission of carbon countries where we qualify for carbon credit. And that's a great news and news to be shared with, that we are one of the few countries who qualify to claim carbon credits. We have signed an agreement with Norway. Pakistan will be selling the extra carbon credits to Norway, and it is between government to government. The government to government, you get, say, for example, $10 per carbon credit. But if you go to the private sector, you get $1 maybe carbon credit. So this is one thing. We're very seriously pursuing it, following it, and it is very much there. Second thing, what we are doing for our mega resources is petroleum development levy. The petroleum development levy is a levy charged again on the petroleum product, mainly petrol and diesel. And it started with 40 rupees per liter, then 50 rupees per liter, then IMF advised 80 rupees per liter. But till last week, it's reached 117 rupees per liter. So any poor boy driving motorcycle going to the petrol station, getting 1 liter of petrol, is paying 117 rupees as petroleum development levy from his pocket for the climate resilience program. And there cannot be a better example than this, because these people, to them, if it is 400 rupees liter of petrol, and if you're paying 117, which is about 30%, I think it's a very commendable contribution from people who can hardly afford it. So this is my second, a very serious intention of the government of Pakistan to contribute towards this cause. Third is, for the first time, we have taken up the matter with the IMF, and I'm very happy that we qualified for the Climate Resilience Sustainability, CSR. CRS, it was, I think, the approved amount was 1.2 billion, and out of which successfully $400 million has been disbursed. This money is again but this is not a grant. It's a loan, payable. And again payable by the masses, but the people, like I gave you 2 examples, the poorest of the poorest man and the richest of the richest man. It across the board. Abhisar? So here again, these 3 programs are very important programs which we are pursuing it, and we want to pursue it and want it to be continued for this project. Now, other than this, Pakistan is also working to promote renewable energy. And in renewable, we are working on promoting solar, wind, hydro, where there is no carbon involved. And Pakistan is one of the few countries in the world, because nowadays we very proudly say out of world, and this is true. The way solar energy generation has come up in Pakistan, it's unbelievable. And that's why last year when they imposed sale tax 18% on the solar panel, my chairman, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, called me and say, we are not supporting and we will not vote, because we are the people who are voting, but the direction, of course, come from the big bosses. And he said, it will put a burden to the poor man. So we fought. And finally, instead of 18%, they reduced to 10% of GST on solar panel import in Pakistan. But this time, the bureaucrats are very smart. And I've seen it for a few years. During last few years, they have 230 ways and means to fool you around and to get the things done, to meet their targets, and again say, कि हमने tax नहीं लगाया है. So this time they have imposed GST on inverter. But I don't know if you know or you don't know, inverter is a part of the solar panel. So if you're not putting tax on a solar panel and you're putting an integrated part of it, which is inverter, it's just the same thing. So yesterday and today we've been fighting, as I said, both are same thing. So if you don't want solar panel to be penalized, then inverter also should not be penalized, should not be charged. And hopefully we will prevail. But problem is most of the reliefs are to be referred to IMF. Hafiz Saab knows the channel, the road, how it is goes there and how it comes back. But it's a strong case. So our policy is to get away from fuel and to switch over to non-fossil renewable energy. But because we have about 8,000 megawatt extra on national grid, 8,000 megawatt on national grid. Now the government wants all of you, my industry, to use this 8,000. But this 8,000 megawatt is very expensive. So you're talking about 30 rupees, 35 rupees per unit. Whereas in solar, you're talking about 9 rupees per unit. So it's huge difference. And that's why people say, okay, if you put extra restrictions on solar panel, like getting licenses from NEPRA and buying on 9 rupees instead of 27 rupees, repayment calculating on 8 years instead of 2-3 years, then we are going for battery system, hybrid, and this will happen. Note it down with my name. Next 1-2 years, hybrid will come and people will not require government any permission because this is their complete mechanism to generate power and to use it. And then 8,000 will be maybe 12,000 extra. So it's up to them. पे वो सेल लगाते हैं उस बिजली की क्या करते हैं वो आप हमें बतलाइएगा. But we are trying not to put any extra burden on the renewable energy projects, mainly solar. I won't take long, but these are the practical things which I've been handling for last 1 week. They're all very latest. They are all very up to date as on today. And I'm very sure that it will help you to prepare your report. Thank you so much. Thank you. अच्छा लेकिन जी नेशनल असेंबली में बजट पेश किया गया था 1 हफ्ते पहले, और हमारी स्टैंडिंग कमेटी ऑन फाइनेंस एंड रेवेन्यूज को अप्रूव करती है। 2 साल से कानून में चेंजेस हुआ है, सो वी हैव टू गो थ्रू 1000 पेजेस, 1000 पेजेस, कॉमा, फुल स्टॉप, एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग विच यू फील इज नॉट करेक्ट। तो हमने उसको रिव्यू करा है, जहां जहां हमें कंट्रोडिक्शन। यस, वन थिंग मोर, गवर्नमेंट ने इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल पे सेल टैक्स लगाया है और हाइब्रिड पे भी लगाया है, और रेगुलेटरी ड्यूटी भी लगाई है 30%, आई थिंक।
प्राइस से नहीं लिंक किया 20 मिलियन
लिंक है, बट जनरल पॉलिसी लास्ट ईयर दे वांट टू प्रमोट इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल्स, दे वांट टू प्रमोट हाइब्रिड, दे वांटेड फ्यूसल फ्यूल निकल जाए, पेट्रोल डीजल खत्म हो, उन गाड़ियों को BYD ये वो, they was coming Pakistan, lot of people is booked, they are on the way, and एकदम से उन्होंने लगा दी 30-40% regulatory duty and sale tax, then making the price up very high. But then to me it is against, it is a contradiction कि आपका जो अपना कानून है, उस जो बनाना चाह रहे हैं, जो पॉलिसी है, उसके अगेंस्ट जा रहे हैं। उसे तो इनकरेज करें, आप डिस्करेज तो ना करें। वो चीज़ जो आप समझते हैं मुल्क के लिए, कंज्यूमर्स के लिए, आने वाले वक्त के लिए ज़रूरी है। तो एक तो हमने इलेक्ट्रिकल एंड हाइब्रिड व्हीकल्स पे करा है, दूसरा हमने, हमारा एतराज़ था जो इन्वर्टर पे लगा दिया इन्होंने, और हमें कहा देखें जी, पैनल पे सोलर पे नहीं लगाया, हमने आपसे जो वादा किया था लास्ट टाइम वो ही है 10%, पर चुपके से पैनल पे लगा दिया जो उसके साथ ही होता, उसके बगैर नहीं पैदा कर सकते। तो इस तरह के गिमिक्स होते हैं, ब्यूरोक्रेट्स आर वेरी स्मार्ट, बट वी आर ट्राइंग। हमारे जैसे कुछ लोग हैं जो इंडस्ट्री के हैं, जो बिजनेस से हैं, हमारे टेक्सटाइल मिल्स हैं, दूसरे, सुबह दोपहर शाम हम यही सब काम करते हैं, तो वी कैन ईजिली कैच। तो वो सब चीज़ें हमने उसको करी हैं। हमारे 3 प्रोग्राम हैं जिसमें लोग, आप जैसे लोग कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं आलूदगी को कम करने के लिए, मौसमियाती आलूदगी को कम करने के लिए। पहला है कार्बन लीवे, जो 2.5 रुपये होता था पर लीटर, अब इसको 5 रुपये पर लीटर करके और इसके लिए मुख्तस किया गया है। दूसरा PDL, पेट्रोलियम डेवलपमेंट लीवे, अब वो कम हो गया है, अब दोनों मिला के 80 रुपये तकरीबन पर लीटर हो जाता है। दोनों से क्या, डीजल एंड पेट्रोल दोनों में एवरेज देखें तो अब 80 रुपये पर लीटर, 80 रुपये अगर निकाल दें तो आपको तो पेट्रोल फ्री पड़ गया। यू गाइस आर द हैप्पीएस्ट पर्सन ऑन द अर्थ। तो वी आर फाइटिंग, उसमें आप भी अपना आवाज, आप हिसाब से मैं कहूँगा अपनी रिपोर्ट में कहें कि ये पेट्रोलियम डेवलपमेंट लीवे should not be a source of revenue generation. It's a measures for pollution control. अगर इसकी डेफिनेशन बदल जाए कि पेट्रोलियम डेवलपमेंट लीवे आपका सोर्स ऑफ रेवेन्यू बन गया है, हुकूमत को डायरेक्ट जाता है क्योंकि ये लीवे सूबों को नहीं जाता, तो फिर ये डिफरेंट माइंडसेट से आप खेल रहे हैं। तो दूसरा है, तीसरा है क्लाइमेट रिजिलियंस सस्टेनेबिलिटी, या IMF से हमने लिया है 1.2 बिलियन प्रोग्राम, अप्रूव्ड है फंड्स। यही हमारे 7 बिलियन की जो लिमिट है एक्सटेंडेड फंड फैसिलिटी के, उसके साथ है, और $400 मिलियन हमको ऑलरेडी डिसबर्स हो गया, डिसबर्स्ड हो गया, पे कर चुका। लेकिन हमने उनसे कहा तो उन्होंने आया जी मैनग्रोव जैसे कुछ प्रोजेक्ट हैं, ये अच्छा है आप उर्दू में मुझसे बात करा रहे हैं, तो उसमें खर्च हुआ है। भाई मैनग्रोव में $400 मिलियन तो नहीं होता ना। तो इस पे भी आवाज उठाएं कि हमें बतलाएं कि जो हमने लोन लिया है, एलोकेशंस ली है, उसके प्रोजेक्ट्स कौन से आ रहे हैं, किन प्रोजेक्ट पे खर्च हो रहा है। सही है। सो दिस इज ऑल फ्रॉम माय साइड एंड आई होप यू फाइंड इन्फॉर्मेटिव। थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you. Ji, thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for interventions, and we fully understand. The session is going on and the thing is continue, but thank you so much for giving us the time. Thank you.
Madam, excuse me, I'm sorry, National
National Assembly calls.
Thank you.
Assembly.
So,
Please check if it can be somehow.
we're free. Thank you. So, yes, again, continuing with the discussion, SDPI will soon now be presenting its own report on where we actually think the climate which tagging comes in, where does the current this year's budget stand. So for this, I'll invite Dr. Zainab Naim for her technical presentation. And if I can request the MIS team to please share the screen, and then we'll later be joined by two of our colleagues as the discussion goes forward.
Thank you very much. And once again, good evening, everyone. So today I'll try to be brief and I'll try to just connect what is exactly happening in context of budgetary allocations in Pakistan at federal level and why climate needs to be considered as part of development and fiscal planning. Next, please. So I'll just give a brief overview of Pakistan's climate and fiscal reality. We are, of course, among the top 10 most vulnerable countries. 2022 floods alone incurred the losses approximate $30 billion. Then we had 2025 floods. 4 million people were displaced. 822 billion rupees losses were incurred. It was considered a downside on the growth by your economic survey report. And then, of course, the heat waves. Unfortunately, heat waves is not considered as a macroeconomic risk as yet. That's why the fiscal losses connected with the heat waves are not being taken into account into your economic survey. Then we have the fiscal reality. So debt servicing alone, almost 8 trillion rupees. You know, this is your largest federal budget item that you see. And then development space is shrinking. You have your 1 trillion in as part of your development budget in the PSTP. Budget book is available, you can see. Only 0.25% of it makes part of your total environmental allocations. And then it's a recurring fiscal liability. One floods takes you back 30 years of development gains are lost only because of your one floods. That is something we have taken into account, but not the heat waves and gloves and etc. That still needs to be considered. Next, please. So if we see some of the numbers, this is also the debt servicing that reached to 9.8 trillion back in your last fiscal year 2024 to 25 and for 26, and it is approximately making 47% of your federal budget. Now, public development spending has dropped. It is only 1% of your GDP. Agriculture, which used to be considered part of your, mega GDP indicator, and it still is if we connect it with exports and overall economy, most of the losses are being incurred in your agri sector. And then energy crisis and circular debt challenges already are being discussed. Heat wave, they cut your labor productivity by 8 to 12%. So your, laborers, your workers that are working in these extreme conditions, they cannot perform. Then there's an indirect burden on your health sector as well. Of course, they get sick, etc. So it's all connected. Climate change may push 15 to 20 million additional Pakistanis into poverty by 2030. This is the latest statistics. We are redefining definitions for poverty at the parliament, but this is a global, statistics that connects how a country gets vulnerable. Just consider the 240 million Pakistanis, and out of that, the number of the ratio of poverty is quite high. Next, please. So how climate is a fiscal development nexus? Of course, if there is a fiscal stress because of climate vulnerability, it becomes your development challenge. And it is a development challenge for Pakistan. So what is the desired pathway? Adaptation plus mitigation plus resilience building into every budget line. So it has to be connected. It is all interconnected. There are co-benefits. Then fiscal stability, green revenues, they need to be ring-fenced. As of now, they're part of your national treasury and not being earmarked, not being reinvested back into your climate resilience. And PSDP's, the development budget, as per IMF reforms, it needs to be screened for climate risk. And your annual development plan, your projects in your ADP, 1% of every ADP needs to be allocated for climate. This is part of your IMF RSF agenda that government needs to do to ensure that they get the next disbursement. Next, please. Okay, so Pakistan's climate finance needs. Annual adaptation per year, we require 7 to 14 billion US dollars. Total investment needs that are projected by 2030 is approximately USD 348 billions. Current international climate finance that we are receiving per annum is between 1.4 to $2 billion, and our finance gap, needs versus received, is 90% unfunded. Now, if we come to annual climate finance, needs versus needs, for Ministry of Climate Change, the total allocation has been shrinking. If we compare it over the last 5 years, 84% of your ministry's budget has been declined. Next, please. Even within South Asia region, Pakistan remains one of the countries that remains least climate finance. Why is that? If Bangladesh and India are receiving more than Pakistan, why are we not receiving? That's a question we need to ask. Okay, so evolution of climate budget tagging. As per IMF Resilience and Sustainability Fund, Pakistan is supposed to climate or green tag its budget, allocate certain of its budget heads under climate. So we started doing it since 2023. In 2024, it became official. Last time, government of Pakistan tagged almost 8.2% of its development budget as climate and 6.9% of its current expenditure as climate. I'm talking about the previous budget. This budget is yet to be improved. That's why we haven't given the numbers for that. So 44 to 50% of the green revenue and subsidies were tagged as green as part of this climate budget tagging. 5,000 cost centers were tagged. What does it mean when we tag 5,000 cost centers? So you have ministries, you have line departments that make sure that rescue departments hote hain, and so many departments that ensure different projects of climate, disaster, etc. So whatever gets allocated to those departments, it can easily be measured under the climate budget tagging. How much is being allocated, how much is being invested, how much is being spent actually. And so accountability is easier this way. Next, please. So federal climate budget for fiscal year 2026 to 27, if we compare it with previous fiscal year, 70% this time we have seen the decline. For adaptation, almost 32%, 0.9% of the entire climate budget is adaptation, 58% is mitigation, and supporting areas is the third category under which government at federal level is tagging it. So it is 9.1% of climate budget. Total climate tag is 214 billion rupees for this fiscal year. Next, please.
Can you ask a question?
Sir, Ji.
Can we ask a question on your slide?
I think we can perhaps wait a bit for her to finish the slides, and then we'll have ample time for you.
If you can note it down, please.
Please, Zainab.
Okay. Okay.
Mitigation is something which is very, very important. So I just raised a question about the mitigation, but it's okay.
Sure.
We do have some time for that. We'll definitely take your question.
Okay, next, please. Okay, so if I talk about green revenues versus climate spending, if you see the table, petroleum levy, oil and gas royalties, gas development surcharge, climate support levy, EV adoption levy, windfall levy, petroleum levy on LPG. So these are all tagged, and this table is table number 20 in your budget in brief document, and which is available on Finance Division's website. You can review it. So almost 2026 billion rupees approximately is being tagged as your green linked revenues, and climate and green subsidies. If I total the subsidies that are given in the budget book, it is approximately 690 million. So if I explain it in simpler terms, for every 10 rupees that government is collecting, only one is reaching the climate tagged action. This is the mismatch in the budget if we talk about the vulnerability overall. Next, please. So you can see the green revenue composition in this graph also. I've explained it. Next, please. Okay. So climate revenue accountability gap. This is essentially a question that is being asked now, that if government is generating a lot of revenue out of climate revenue, why is that not being ring-fenced or reinvested back into the climate action? Of course, there are challenges on part of government as well, because we are under IMF debt, and there's so many other aspects attached to it. So, but some of it could be earmarked. So these are some of the suggestions coming in from different experts. Next, please. So Ministry of Climate Change budget allocation, if you see the year-on-year trend starting from fiscal year 2021 and now 2027, this is how the ministry's budget has been shrunk. And for this year, 94% of the entire ministry's budget is allocated for one project, that is upscaling green Pakistan. And just, peanuts is being allocated for urban strategy to reduce flood, etc. That is another project. And two other projects include capacity building for ministry, and there's another project for green skill and green entrepreneurship. Next, please. Okay, and if I see the overall budget book, the total allocation that could be under climate tag projects at provincial and federal level, that federal has allocated under the PSDP. You see, in different projects, there is disaster preparedness, water resources, disaster response. For Balochistan, the mega project under climate tagging is the IFRAP project, and then there are projects for dams, irrigation, flood works, infrastructure development, etc. So next, please. If I go through the initial review of the projects under by the provinces, and because nothing is finalized, this is just a whatever is being discussed by the provinces by their as part of their budget speeches, overview of what exactly is happening. So Punjab is taking the lead in context of climate tagging. This time, last year it was 3%. This time it is approximately 5.2%. That is part of their climate tag budget. And since tagging is not yet initiated, but they are spending mostly on solar energy projects, irrigation, something around coastal resilience and plantation. And then for KP, this screening has been integrated for the annual development projects, but climate budget tagging is still missing. They're focusing around forestry, watershed management, national adaptation plan implementation pilots. So just to mention, SDPI developed 2 district adaptation plans for KP, which they have endorsed, and they have made it part of their, they're going to be making it part of their budget. I'm not sure what they're going to be announcing. It's still in process, but as part of the initial documents and speeches, this is what the focus is. For Balochistan, drought resilience is the major focus, and also the flood recovery. Next, please. So as part of IMF climate screening, government has started doing it. Budget tagging, 5,000 cost centers, green taxonomy has been initiated also, and then climate finance tracking as part of the green revenues and transfers that you see in the budget and brief, that is there. But of course, fiscal buffer is not there. No reserve space for climate shocks. There is contingency in emergency budget, but still how you specify it based on, the needs and based on the vulnerability assessments, that is not there yet. No climate expenditure rule, no minimum spending or growth flow for climate is there. No climate resilience financing framework, disaster resilience financing strategy is there, but overall resilience financing framework is not there that includes your adaptive measures, or in Urdu we say pesh ki ikdamat. No mandatory climate impact reporting. If mandatory reporting is missing, accountability becomes a question mark. Next, please. So SDPI, in collaboration with Embassy of Denmark, has developed a reforms agenda, how climate needs to be made part of development and fiscal priority. These are some of the areas where we are proposing to the government how climate risk needs to be integrated as part of fiscal policy and public financial management. Somehow government has started doing it, so we are hopeful that it will get more streamlined across the provinces. Building a coherence framework for climate finance mobilization and exploring innovative funding mechanisms that are mostly around concessional financing and existing grants, but how we can develop our stance around it, and driving a just, inclusive and accelerated energy transition and green industrial transformation. This is the key. Pakistan needs to, we have a national adaptation priority plan, but we do not have a national mitigation priority plan yet. Then strengthening climate governance, institutional coordination and project quality, developing integrated climate data, transparency, etc. So this is an overall strategic priority area. I think last slide, next please. Okay, this is something that I wanted to give a snapshot what SDPI is working, and this is something that nobody in the entire world has developed. So we are working on climate adaptation investor index for Pakistan, and initial score of climate adaptation investor index. This includes your public sector spending, your private sector development partners. Pakistan is ranking at a moderate scale, 55.69, and maximum investor confidence is coming in from your private sector. Why? Because after 2020, ESG is a mandatory requirement for your multinational corporations and many of your private sector companies who are exporters. And then adaptation project pipeline is standing at number 65, and then risk management and protection is being ensured as well, because this is a major requirement of your development sector now. But on the inclusivity scale and local adaptation, we are lagging behind. This index, we will be launching it in next month. And we are also creating a benchmark with other countries in the region, for example, Bangladesh, on where they are standing. This is first of its kind investor confidence index that has not been developed by anybody in the world. So this is STPI has initiated it just to assess how investors' confidence is in context of investing in climate adaptation measures. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2. Perfect, and thank you so much, Zainab. And I think with this, we'll be moving to the roundtable session. But and for this, I think, sir, before taking your question, I think we'll initially come to Shahjahan Mirza Saab. Shahjahan Saab, sir, again, you have been a part of the Parliamentary Forum on Energy and Economy for long as well during your tenure and even post that. So if you have any quick suggestions, recommendations on how things can be done better, differently.
Thank you very much. I think what we have heard from parliamentarian Mirza Sab, Zainab, and everyone, I think a couple of points which require quite a lot of attention if we want to create climate resilience. One is, I think that, as for example, if we're talking about petroleum development levy, we must ring fence the uses of it. We actually starting using this petroleum development levy as to meeting the budget deficit. So that has become a tool that whatever FBR can't collect, so that is being met through the petroleum development levy and petroleum levy. Similarly, as Zainab has pointed out, I think that's another critical thing, that there should be some mandatory legal requirement for environmental reporting and environmental spending also. SCCP, has some environmental guidelines. NEPRA also has some environmental guidelines, but I think now it's the time, in terms of the vulnerabilities we are facing and the climate disasters we are facing. I think now it's the time that this should be binding and mandatory. This should not stay as a guidelines and the sort of option for the corporations and for the other institutions. Similarly, when we talk about the budget spending, of course, we know probably 67% of the budget is going in 2-3 heads. So we have left very little fiscal space. But again, as Mirza Tarbe is saying, that we have certain controversy or competing policy objectives within the budget. We want to promote the renewable, but we actually are taxing the renewable. We want to actually discourage the fossil fuel, but at the same time taxing the renewable energy also. So I think these are some of the steps which we need to be very careful. But if we just go beyond this, I think the overall structure of the budget, the development expenditure are very little. Somehow we need to increase that, because unless we increase the development expenditure, there's no economic growth, there's no job creation. So as we create the job, as we basically make the economic growth, that is where actually you can make further funds available for the climate resilience and that. And of course, we should not be reactive, which we are always, that once we are within some calamity, we start actually looking at it. So we need to be reactive and make some policies and allocate some funds prior to actually. We should plan prior. I think some of the awareness is there. This year, we are seeing some NDMA and the other institutions, so they are preparing beforehand. But still, I think the effort and the funds which are required for this purpose, that are not there. And again, another issue, I think provinces and the federation are cooperating on many issues. I think this is another area where the spending should be actually sort of common spending, mean whatever projects they are doing, whatever project federal government is doing, that should be collaborated, so that the ultimate result, we can develop some synergy, rather than they are spending on very, very small projects and every province doing it own. Of course, that's a constitutional issue. They have right to do it, but at least the collaboration will make it more synergized. So we can actually get more result and more benefit rather than individual priorities. So I stop here. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Shahzad Saab. Very pertinent points. G, I think if you have any suggestions in cooperation, sir, I think you have a question if you'd like to mention. If we can just actually, so just 1 minute, we have people joining online. If you could just pass a mic to, because they won't be able to hear you without the mic. See. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. Mic is working. So my name is Irfan Shahzad. I'm CEO of a environmental consultancy firm in Pakistan. We are working in Pakistan for giving the MRV solutions, because in the slide which Zainab has mentioned, it shows mitigation and MRV. So that raised questions to understand the requirement. The question for Zainab is about the mitigation and decarbonization. So as she mentioned in her slides that SDPI is working on the MRV system, which is means that physical truth and scientific based solution, because to mitigate you need to monitor and report. So what is the system you're using for monitoring and quantifying the gases like carbon, methane, such type of hazardous gases? Because yeah, thank you.
Sure, thank you. I can perhaps partly respond to it and then I'll let Zainab respond to it. So SDPI actually, I mean, we're a policy-based think tank, so we don't actually develop any MRV system. That project we actually had with the embassy was that we actually had to prepare a pipeline of the projects that can eventually be traded in the carbon markets. And for that, we actually provide them a lot of guidance, a lot of suggestions on how those should the MRV system be designed, what parameters or what data should it actually collect. I mean, as per any of the formal or potential standards under which any of the carbon credits can actually be traded. So what are some of the requirements and kind of telling them, but eventually at the end of the day, designing that or implementing that MRV system is up to the private sector. I mean, SDPI is more of a policy think tank, so we actually don't go into the designing phase of the things or the implementation side of the things, but I'll let Zainab respond to it as well.
Yes, thank you so much. So in my slides, I did not mention that STPI is developing any MRV system, and I think Ubaid from Energy Unit has mentioned it with clarity. But I said that we are working on developing an adaptation investor confidence index, which is extremely important, keeping in view why Pakistan is not getting a lot of finance, not just from development sector, but also from the private sector. And why, what are the key drivers that actually, drives the investor's confidence on if the investor wants to invest in particular adaptive measures, or if they don't want to invest, also comparing it with your national adaptation priorities. Around mitigation, I believe MRV systems are some of the MRV systems are already in place by the government departments, but I think mitigation, mitigation, there has to be a national mitigation priority plan as well, where CSOs with SDPI have been working for long. So I think in that context, a lot needs to be done. A lot has been shared, but then there are also certain aspects that are directly linked with your country's fiscal challenges, especially pertaining to the debt matters with IMF. So that's why we are unable to open a lot of cushion around it. I hope we have answered.
Thank you so much, Zainab ji. Sir, over to you. Thank you.
My name is Zulkarnain Rafiq. I represent National Disaster Risk Management Fund. I was recently involved with the budget, formulation exercise at NDRMF as in my capacity as the acting chief financial officer, and I head the project preparation facility at NDRMF. So both ways, very relevant to some of the points that you raised in your presentation. One particularly caught my eye, which was greater than 90% of the requirement or the need being unfunded, whether that is because of the shrunk fiscal space that we have, or whether we cannot attract international climate finance. We at NDRMF also looked at the same issue, and that's why we came up with a solution, which is the project preparation facility. You're very right in saying that the $350 billion in 7 years being the need internationally accepted. Maybe some people around the table would say it's a little on the high side. Even if we rationalize it, even then it's between 30 to 40 billion dollars required per year till 2030. And how do we bridge that gap? We will never be able to bridge that gap if we keep depending on PSDP funding for the projects identified by the provinces or by the federal government or other entities. We believe that supporting public and non-public entities through international climate finance by attracting their funding, which is available, by the way, with GCF, with GEF, with Adaptation Fund, with the World Bank, with the Asian Development Bank, with UN agencies, with the Islamic Development Bank. There are so many other names that I can, list down with whom the funds are available. But we are not able to attract those funds. Number one, we lack institutional capacity. We cannot put up good, acceptable, ready to be funded proposals to these entities, to these organizations, these funding institutions. And so building institutional capacity in these organizations, for example, the Ministry of Water Resources has listed down dozens of projects that they want to fund, and they've requested NDRMF also to fund those projects. But they don't have the capacity to come up with proposals, with feasibility studies, with environmental, social, and gender analyses done for those proposals or for those projects that can be put up to these entities. So this is, I think, the solution. We have to move towards prevention, preparation instead of being reactive.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is the key reason, actually. We have not been able to attract the funding.
Exactly. Which
Bangladesh and India both are ahead of us in terms of.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Bahut shukriya for bringing this point. I think we'll just a couple of minutes. Asad Alam Saab would be joining us. And just in parallel, let me check if we have any further questions from the participants, please. Please.
I don't know this would be the right forum for this, but CBAM is something which is ahead. And, one of the people who know about the CBAM, so that will impose a lot of taxes and give the default values of on the carbon emission if the industry don't provide the data. So my question over here that have SDPI proposed any strategy or plan that how, and I'm sure this working CBAM is not from the federal side but from the provincial sides. So the EPA is looking after and they are responsible to give the solution. So my question is how is SDPI work and give a solution on this, how they provide the data. They require the physical truth, not the estimation. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, I think I can perhaps briefly touch on the idea. SDPI has been working. Just to give the question a context, the idea is that, there is going to be a mechanism under an in-carbon border adjustment mechanism, and it's initially being introduced by the European Union. And the idea behind that is that any exports or imports that would be coming to the European Union, there would be a tax associated with them, given that the emission environmental footprint of that product, if it's kind of either above or below the EU threshold. So based upon that, a tax would be implied on that. For Pakistan, the challenge is that export of Pakistan to EU is highly dominated by the textile sector, and textile is their main export base. So any new taxes comes is going to directly will be targeting the export base of Pakistan. So that's mainly a challenge. And if you kind of compare to EU, Pakistan's environmental footprint is almost 1.3 times higher environmental footprint is 1.3 times higher than the EU. So given the question what SDPI has actually been doing, that we have definitely been discussing this topic with the Ministry of Commerce since almost 1.5 years. SDPI for particularly the textile sector, how it can be actually decarbonized in line with the requirements of the CBAM. We have actually have a couple of reports already present and published on the website. And I think Zainab's team is actually working very dedicatedly with the textile sector, how it can be decarbonized. One very key policy document on which we have actually provided a lot of our feedbacks was the CBAM compliant guidelines, which the ministry in itself was taking lead into. So that is again a very quick overview of what SDPI is doing. But again, if Zainab wants to briefly further add on.
So just to let you know, CBAM is one name of one regulation. There are 2 to 3 more regulations by European Union that are going to be directly impacting Pakistan and Pakistan's textile industry. CBAM में तो चले हम कहते हैं बाद में अभी कुछ टाइम है, बट इको डिजाइन डायरेक्टिव जब आप पढ़ते हैं तो उसमें कोई टाइम नहीं है, वो स्टार्ट हो चुका है टैक्स. इसके अलावा आप इसको भी छोड़ दें, ईयू को भी छोड़ दें. अगर हम ये बात करें कि पूरी दुनिया में जो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हैं मोस्टली जो क्लाइमेट वल्नरेबल हैं, वो IMF से कर्जा जब लेते हैं तो उसमें मोस्टली वो डिजास्टर स्पेंडिंग और उस चीज से डिजास्टर की वजह से इम्पैक्ट ज्यादा हुए होते हैं और उसकी वजह से भी कर्जा लेना पड़ जाता है. तो एक एस्टिमेटेड स्टडी है IMF की जो ये कहती है कि जो कर्जा हमसे लिया जाता है वो इवेंचुअली क्लाइमेट शॉक्स पे लगा दिया जाता है. और उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अभी एक और एस्टिमेटेड नंबर आया था कि हर साल पाकिस्तान जो है एनुअली एक इम्प्लिसिट क्लाइमेट टैक्स दे रहा है, जो डॉक्यूमेंट तो नहीं हो रहा लेकिन हम दे रहे हैं. वो टैक्स है तकरीबन 440 से 500 बिलियन रुपए का एनुअली, जो हमारे ऊपर इनकर हो जाता है क्योंकि क्लाइमेट शॉक्स इस तरह के हैं. तो आपकी इंडस्ट्री भी उसमें शामिल है. अगर हम EU CBAM में नहीं भी इंगेज होते तो भी वन वे और दी अदर वी आर एक्चुअली पेइंग अ climate tax based on the kind of lending that is there by IMF, based on the kind of loans that we have to get. इसी की मिसाल है रिजिलियंट पाकिस्तान कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी 2022 के सैलाबों के बाद, जब हम गए थे कि हमें उसमें पैसों की रिक्वायरमेंट, ज़ाहिर इतना बड़ा ह्यूमैनिटेरियन क्राइसिस आ गया. $10 बिलियन की कमिटमेंट हुई थी. टोटल डिस्बर्स पिछले साल 2025 तक जून में, अभी का मुझे डेटा अभी नहीं पता, लेकिन पिछले साल तक $4.62 बिलियन डिस्बर्स हुए थे, जिसमें से सिर्फ 3% ग्रांट थी, बाकी सारा आपका 56% लोन था. तो ये एक जो नरेटिव बना था ना कि बहुत पैसा आया, कहाँ गया, सूबों को नहीं मिला, ऐसा कुछ नहीं था. पैसा आया ही नहीं, आपका सारा लोन आया. सो लोन्स एंड टैक्सेस, एंड दिस इज अ ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट इनजस्टिस एज वेल, कि आपको ग्रांट्स नहीं मिलते, आपको ज्यादा कर्जे दिए जाते हैं, जिसके लिए बहुत जरूरी है कि पाकिस्तान जैसा कंट्री अपना ग्लोबल फोरस पे भी अपना नरेटिव स्ट्रांग करे. बट वो नरेटिव तभी स्ट्रांग होता है जब कंट्री लेवल पे गवर्नेंस और ये सारे चैलेंजेस ओवरकम होते हैं रिगार्डिंग क्लाइमेट प्रायोरिटीज. So I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Zainab. And perhaps just a last round of questions, if we have, we can perhaps take a couple. Please.
How Pakistan can be moved beyond the climate tagging as a reporting tool and अपनी import export को जो CBAM से exposure उसका है उससे कैसे बचा सकती हैं या क्या कर सकती है, इसको किस तरह?
Let me just take multiple questions, see if we have any the question coming in from the Ji?
It's a good forum to understand and really appreciate the way that rating. It's really insight for me because never been involved in that kind of program from the private sector. So the insight I'm looking for is about the direct digital passport.
Digital? Oh, okay, digital product passport. Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Sarim, regarding that, I think under climate budget tagging, what we are proposing from SDPI is a 3-tiered accountability framework. Accountability framework जो IMF RSF का भी हिस्सा है, जब वो ये कहता है कि आपका PSDP में हर प्रोजेक्ट जो कि एक सर्टेन थ्रेशोल्ड पर है उसको स्क्रीन करना है, क्लाइमेट स्क्रीनिंग करनी है उसकी, यानी क्लाइमेट के साथ वो लिंकेज है या नहीं, उसकी स्क्रीनिंग होगी, उसके बाद वो अप्रूवल फेज में जाएगा. दूसरा, उसमें एक और है कि आपका एनुअल डेवलपमेंट प्लान्स का 1% एलोकेशन होनी चाहिए। एडीपी आपके डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे जाता है, तो अगर डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे वो एलोकेशन जो है हम उसको मेजर कर लें या उसकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी कर लें, तो आपको बहुत पता लग जाएगा कि वो जो हम कहते हैं ना कि रीचिंग टू द लास्ट माइल क्लाइमेट में, यानी कि उस आखिरी किसान तक भी पैसे को जाना चाहिए जो बेचारा सफर कर रहा है। अभी सबसे ज्यादा आपके किसान की कमर टूट रही है, तो अगर ये स्क्रीनिंग को इंश्योर कर लिया जाए अकाउंटेबिलिटी मेजर में, तो और सीबीटी ऑलरेडी है 5000 कॉस्ट सेंटर्स टैग किए, लेकिन जहां मसला है वो है सूबों में ये टैगिंग जरूरी है, और वहां पे जो एनुअल क्लाइमेट स्टेटमेंट्स हैं बजट की वो होनी चाहिए। जैसे एक पिछले फिस्कल ईयर में 17% बजट बलोचिस्तान ने सिर्फ अपना एनवायरनमेंट पे लगाया था, बाकी बजट लगा हुआ ही नहीं था। इसी तरह सिंध गवर्नमेंट ने पिछले कुछ सालों में सिर्फ 22% जो है 48%, 44% या 48%, मुझे एग्जैक्टली नंबर नहीं याद, प्लीज मुझे कोट मत कीजिएगा इसमें, मुझे याद नहीं है, लेकिन वो उस पे स्पेंडिंग में था, सारा वो लगा भी नहीं। तो मेरे ख्याल से यहाँ पे अकाउंटेबिलिटी फ्रेमवर्क को इंश्योर करना बहुत जरूरी है कि आप जो क्लाइमेट बजट टैग कर रहे हैं उसकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी कैसे हो रही है। तो ये एक हम एसडीपीआई प्रपोज कर रहे हैं, हमारी वो रिपोर्ट नेक्स्ट मंथ तक लाइव होगी अराउंड क्लाइमेट बजट टैगिंग, कि ये 3 tiered अकाउंटेबिलिटी फ्रेमवर्क होना चाहिए, वो वर्टिकल और हॉरिजॉन्टल में। कमिंग टुवर्ड्स योर क्वेश्चन ऑन डिजिटल प्रोडक्ट पासपोर्ट, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स इस पे कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग बहुत ज्यादा कर रही है विद एक्सपोर्टर्स एंड स्पेसिफिकली टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री। उनकी सब कमेटीज भी बनी हुई है जिसपे उन्होंने इनिशिएटिव लिया हुआ है डीपीपी के अराउंड। इसके अलावा यूरोपियन यूनियन का भी एक हिस्सा है पार्ट ऑफ बिल्डिंग कैपेसिटीज ऑफ प्राइवेट सेक्टर एंड एक्सपोर्टर्स, जिसमें वो इन्वेस्ट भी करने को रेडी हैं अराउंड डिजिटल प्रोडक्ट पासपोर्ट के सिखाया जाए इस बारे में। फिलहाल तो ये यहीं तक लिमिटेड है, लेकिन अभी पूरी दुनिया में थोड़ा सा इस पे बैकलैश भी आ रहा है डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज अफ्रीका रीजन से कि हमारे लिए इतना आसान नहीं है, इसके लिए भी फाइनेंसिंग रिक्वायर होती है फॉर बिल्डिंग कैपेसिटीज एंड नॉलेज ट्रांसफर। तो लेकिन डीपीपी ऑफ कोर्स वो मैंडेटरी हो गया, आज ईयू ने कर दिया तो कल को चाइना या कोई और रीजन भी कर देगा, तो उसके लिए जरूरी है कि पाकिस्तान की नेशनल प्रायोरिटी सेटअप हो।
Let me just, Janab, just very briefly take this opportunity to welcome Sadam Niazi Saab. Sir, thank you so much. Sir, if you could just please. Sir, actually the media is here, so Dr. Sajid, sir, if you could just also please join us. Okay. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And I think Zainab, back to you. And apologies for the disturbance.
क्वेश्चन ये था कि डीबीपी के हवाले से जो एक चूंकि again so sorry my interest is the private sector because of private sector, and DPP for that you have to enter the national data, the sovereignty data.
जी जी।
So how you secure that, because once is the data is there, because you need to work on the NDA of DNA of the cotton, so traceability में किस तरह से होगा, national development कैसे secure होगा?
And Zainab will request you to be little brief. I know we don't
Yes,
want
I'm
it to
just
be very
concluding.
bilateral conversation. Sir.
So there are different organizations जिन्होंने traceability के वो बना लिए हैं। Reverse Resources is one of the organizations जिन्होंने textile sector का data जो है वो trace करना शुरू किया हुआ है। But of course it's going to take time. National level पे अभी it is not there, which is a gap. But I believe Ministry of Commerce will be working around it. फिलहाल इस पे data का वो national consolidation अभी इस पर नहीं है। Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zainab. And again, with this, let me formally welcome Sab. Thank you so much for joining us. And we fully understand that the session is still going on, and we're really pleased कि आपने हमारे लिए time निकाला। मैं आपको एक बहुत quick summary दे देता हूँ what we have been discussed. So basically the purpose of this consultation was how Pakistan can embed climate change within its fiscal and development planning processes. उसके अंदर हमें initially we were joined by definitely Dr. Abid Qayyum Suleri, the Executive Director of SDPI, Dr. Mirza Beg Sahab, MNA, and also the Ambassador of Denmark in Pakistan, and also with one of our experts, we have Shahjahan Mirza Sahab, who is the former Managing Director of PPIB and also a colleague from the NDRMF. So, sir, इसमें I think from the initially we kind of जो हमारी budget के ऊपर discussion हुई, we saw how this year's budget responds to the main climate challenge हमारे पास, and some of the very interesting developments, especially given कि किस तरह हुकूमत पाकिस्तान ने being within the IMF both EFF as well as resilience and sustainability facility इनके अंदर रहते हुए how did the government introduce its बजट, स्पेशली द क्लाइमेट बजट टैगिंग वाला जो हमारा कंपोनेंट है। उसके बाद देयर वाज अ वेरी डेडिकेटेड प्रेजेंटेशन ऑन द रिसर्च जो SDPI ने किया ऑन हाउ क्लाइमेट को किस तरह मजीद बेहतर इम्बेड किया जा सकता है विद इन द प्लानिंग प्रोसेसेस। एंड आई थिंक विद इन दिस हमारे पास काफ़ी ज़्यादा डिबेट एनर्जी सेक्टर क्लाइमेट मिटिगेशन के अराउंड भी रही, अडेप्टेशन के अराउंड भी, इवन क्लाइमेट डिप्लोमेसी, हाउ पाकिस्तान नीड्स टू काइंड ऑफ इम्प्रूव उसकी जो आउटरीच है, एडवोकेसी है फॉर अट्रैक्टिंग द इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंस और उसकी बेहतर एलोकेशन के लिए भी। So now again, sir, we're coming towards very end of the session. Before coming to Dr. Sajid Amin, I'll request you to say a few words and if you have any inputs on this session. So please.
I think Dr. Saab can start, then I'll.
Sure. Dr. Sajid, if you'd like to, please.
Thank you, Ji. Let me start by thanking all of you, those who have joined us here in person, online, and those who have left us after their thoughts here. We truly understand the session, assembly is in the session. So I'll just three quick points and then we can listen more from Asad Alam Saab. I think पूरी दुनिया में अब ये बड़ी clear understanding है कि climate change जो है वो सिर्फ environmental risk नहीं है, वो macro economic risk है। किसी भी इकोनॉमी का इस वक्त जो सबसे बड़ा रिस्क जो सामने आ रहे हैं वो दो हैं, कन्फ्लिक्ट और क्लाइमेट चेंज। क्लाइमेट चेंज 4-5 बड़े डायरेक्ट पॉइंट से आपकी इकोनॉमी को, इकोनॉमिक आउटकम्स को हिट करता है। इस वक्त के जो एस्टिमेट्स हैं कि ग्लोबल जो GDP है उसका 1.5 ट्रिलियन जो है हर साल ज़ाया होता है क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से, और ये पाकिस्तान की पूरी इकोनॉमी से 5 गुना ज़्यादा है रफली इस वक्त जो लॉस हो रहा है। और ये एस्टिमेटेड है कि अगर हमने इसको एड्रेस ना किया क्लाइमेट चेंज को तो बाय 2050 ये जो लॉस है ये 20 से 30 ट्रिलियन डॉलर की जो रेंज है उसमें कहीं जा सकता है। इसका डायरेक्ट मतलब है कि आपका जो रेवेन्यू का लॉस है, कि जो गवर्नमेंट के रेवेन्यूज हैं, क्योंकि जब इकोनॉमी में GDP की ग्रोथ नहीं होती, इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ नहीं होती, तो आपका रेवेन्यू का लॉस होता है। और रेवेन्यू के लॉस का मतलब है फिस्कल डेफिसिट्स का होना, जो पाकिस्तान जैसे मुल्कों में हम देखते हैं, और उसका डायरेक्ट लिंक है जो हम कर्जा लेते हैं। तो कोई भी मुल्क जो इवन जो पब्लिक डेट है वो डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल है कि वो कितना वल्नरेबल है क्लाइमेट चेंज को। और इस वक्त जो ग्लोबल साउथ है और खासकर जो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हमारी तरह के जो बहुत ज़्यादा एग्रीकल्चर डिपेंडेंट है वो बहुत ज़्यादा इसको वल्नरेबल हैं। तो ये डायरेक्टली क्लाइमेट चेंज को आपकी जो फिस्कल प्लानिंग है सिर्फ उससे जोड़ता नहीं है, ये उसका कोर पिलर बना देता है। आपकी जो फिस्कल प्लानिंग की सक्सेस और फेलियर है वो डिफाइन करता है कि आपकी जो पूरी की पूरी ट्रेजरी है, फिस्कल प्लानिंग है या ओवरऑल ब्रॉडर इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग है, वो कितना क्लाइमेट चेंज को टैकल कर रही है। और इसमें भी दो अप्रोचेस हैं। मुझे लगता है कि हमारे यहाँ जो अभी तक बहुत ज़्यादा जो बात होती है वो क्लाइमेट चेंज एज ए सेपरेट एक रेजिजुअल के तौर पे एक टैग कर देने की हद तक होती है कि आपने मार्क कर दिया है कि ये किसी न किसी तरह क्लाइमेट चेंज को हैंडल कर रहा है। हम SDPI के फोरम से जो बात करते हैं, और मुझे जब भी इस तरह के किसी फोरम पे, वेरी ऑगस्ट फोरम्स पे बात करने का मौका मिलता है, क्योंकि आप लोग हैं जो बात को आगे लेके चलते हैं, इस वक्त जो बात हो रही है वो हो रही है क्लाइमेट चेंज इन ऑल एंड ऑल इन क्लाइमेट चेंज। सिर्फ फिस्कल प्लानिंग नहीं, आपकी हर पॉलिसी का जो सेंटर है वो क्लाइमेट चेंज एज ए रिस्क और चैलेंज, और क्लाइमेट चेंज एज ए ड्राइवर ऑफ आउटकम्स। वो चाहे सोशल आउटकम्स हैं, चाहे इन्वायरमेंटल आउटकम्स हैं, चाहे इकोनॉमिक आउटकम्स हैं। एम्प्लॉयमेंट, पॉवर्टी, गुर्बत, इनइक्वालिटी, ये डायरेक्ट जुड़ी है इस वक्त क्लाइमेट चेंज के जो रिस्क हैं उसके अंदर से। तो मेरे ख्याल हमें इस वक्त जो बात आगे लेके चलनी है, जो हम चल भी रहे हैं, कि क्लाइमेट चेंज शुड कम एज ए पिलर, नॉट एज ए साइड जो है कि हम जो वो टैगिंग उसके अंदर जो है वो कर रहे हों उसके अंदर। और उसमें आई एम अगेन थैंकफुल कि जो लोग सारे इस पे बात कर रहे हैं, एंड आई थिंक दिस इज एक ऐसा मौजू है जिस पे अब हम शायद पहले ही बहुत लेट हैं बात करने में, तो इस पे बहुत ज़्यादा बात जो है वो कंसिस्टेंटली होनी चाहिए। और बहुत ग्रेटर डायरेक्ट होनी चाहिए, बहुत क्लैरिटी के साथ होनी चाहिए कि क्लाइमेट सेंसिटिव फिस्कल प्लानिंग जो है दैट इज द ओनली वे फॉरवर्ड, ना सिर्फ क्लाइमेट चेंज को टैकल करने के लिए, बट आपकी जो इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग की एफिशिएंसी है, आपकी जो इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी की जो एफिशिएंसी है और जो उसके आउटकम्स हैं, वो डायरेक्टली शेप होंगे कि आपने कितना क्लाइमेट सेंसिटिव फिस्कल प्लानिंग की है, रेवेन्यूज में, एक्सपेंडिचर में, सब्सिडीज में, ग्रांट्स में, हर जगह के ऊपर. So I think my message for today is only that let's start more on a broad base climate sensitive fiscal planning, जिसमें climate change in all in climate change approach पे हम लेके इसको आगे चल रहे हैं. So again on behalf of SDPI, we are really thankful to all of you who have joined. So back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sajid, for putting this all together. Sir, coming to you for.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I'm extremely sorry because our session is going on. So we and the voting was going on. That was the most important part. So that's why I got late. But I'm so grateful to STPI जिन्होंने मुझे इनवाइट किया कि मैं ताकि कोई बात इस पे बात कर सकूं. अभी जिस तरह डॉक्टर साहब ने ये फरमाया है, दिस इज वी आर ऑलरेडी टू लेट ऑन दिस. और आई विल बी वेरी स्ट्रेट एंड ऑनेस्ट दैट वी हैव नॉट रियलाइज एंड अभी तक भी हम इसको रियलाइज नहीं कर सके कि ये क्लाइमेट चेंज जो है ये वर्ल्ड को, और लेट्स टॉक अबाउट पर्टिकुलरली टू पाकिस्तान, कि हमें कितना बैडली ये हिट करेगी इन द कमिंग डेज टू कम, जो कि अल्लाह करे ऐसा ना हो. बट आप बहुत छोटी छोटी चीज़ें देखें कि पिछले दिनों में लाहौर में जो ये बारिश और जो आंधी और तूफान आया, इट वाज नॉट ऑन द वेदर फोरकास्ट, राइट? So it's a big change that 2 दिन के लिए the life was totally paralyzed. So it is not, I'm talking particularly Lahore because the Lahore is bad or something. It's not that. It's because we are not ready for that. और numbers की बात जो है वो तो डॉक्टर साहब ने की, मेरे ख्याल है नंबर की बात मैं ज्यादा नहीं करूंगा. बट हमारे पास जो क्लाइमेट चेंज है, इट इज बिकमिंग अ नेशनल सिक्योरिटी प्रायोरिटी 1 एंड इट शुड बी. क्योंकि आपका जो भी बजट है, ये जो भी चीज है, वो टोटली आपको इस क्लाइमेट चेंज से जो आपने चीज की हुई है वो आपको बड़ा बैडली हिट करेगा. और वो कैसे है कि आपने जो अपनी ग्रोथ का, जो अपनी आपने जो आपकी ज़रात का है, तो बेसिकली वी आर एग्रीकल्चर कंट्री. और आप देखें कि हमारा डे बाय डे वी आर गोइंग डाउन बिकॉज ऑफ दिस क्लाइमेट चेंज. लेकिन मैं क्लाइमेट चेंज के साथ, एक तो हमारे पास ऑनेस्टली कोई प्लान्स नहीं है जो हम अभी बनाने जा रहे हैं. और इस दफा गवर्नमेंट ने जो बजट भी रखा है वो मेरी नज़र में इट्स नॉट साइजेबल, बट लेट्स सी हाउ इट इंक्रीज. बट उसके ऊपर अभी बातचीत हो रही है, दे मे इंक्रीज टू दैट लेवल, बिकॉज अभी बजट अभी प्रेजेंट हुआ है, तो आई कांट टॉक अबाउट द फिगर्स. लेकिन द फिगर इज नॉट मच और कोई इनकरेजिंग नहीं है वो. लेकिन वी हैव टू वर्क on this on a very emergency basis, because मैं इसको maybe शायद ना हो, बट मैं ये क्लाइमेट चेंज को पॉपुलेशन के साथ भी रिलेट करता हूं। वो इसलिए कि बिकॉज ये दोनों चीजें ऐसी हैं जिसको नोबडी इज रियलाइजिंग, लेकिन ये दोनों चीजें इज बिकमिंग अ थ्रेट फॉर अस इन फ्यूचर। नाउ द पॉपुलेशन का ये है कि पॉपुलेशन का इस वक्त ये है कि 225 million roughly. The government figures are by 2050 this will be roughly around 239 or 240 million. जिसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अगर आप इसको अपनी जो ग्रोथ के हिसाब से देखें तो इसका मतलब है आपको साल में 10 मिलियन जॉब्स आपको अ ईयर क्रिएट करने पड़ेंगे। लेकिन वो कहां से आप क्रिएट कर पाएंगे? उससे दूसरी साइड पे जब आप आते हैं, विच इज अगेन अ वेरी वेरी अलार्मिंग सिचुएशन, एंड दैट इज, जो आपको बड़ी हैरानगी होगी कि पाकिस्तान में जो बच्चे हैं इस वक्त, उनकी जो फिगर, अगर 100 बच्चे हैं उनमें से 80 बच्चे ऐसे हैं जो स्टनिंग मीन्स दे आर स्लो और दे आर हैंडीकैप्ड माइंड का उनका। और वो ना दिस क्लाइमेट चेंज, व्हाई आई रिलेट विद दिस, बिकॉज एक तो आपकी महंगाई दिन ब दिन बढ़ती जा रही है, रिसोर्सेज हमारे उतने इंक्रीज नहीं होंगे जितनी हमारी पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज हो रही है। जितना जो हमें क्लाइमेट चेंज हिट करेगा, जिसमें बहुत सी चीजें आ जाती हैं, और लेमन लैंग्वेज के अंदर मैं बात कर रहा हूं कि जी बारिश आती है तो घर गिर जाते हैं और बहुत सी चीजें इसमें वो हैं। तो द गवर्नमेंट इज, द सोसाइटी एंड द गवर्नमेंट बोथ आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस, कि उनको दोबारा अपने उस पर लेके आने के लिए, बट फॉर दैट यू नीड अ मनी। अभी वो जो 80 मैंने बच्चों को कहा, विच इज अ वेरी वेरी अलार्मिंग फिगर ऑनेस्टली। ना आप ये देखें कि आज हम $40 बिलियन के करीब हमारी रेमिटेंस होती है। अगर हमारी बच्चों की, बिकॉज इन्फ्लेशन ज्यादा होगी, अगर एक बच्चे को एक रोटी मिलती है तो उसको आधी रोटी मिलेगी। ठीक है, मैं दिस इज, आई एम टॉकिंग अ फैक्ट विच इज गोइंग टू कम, अल्लाह ना करे, बट दिस इज we have to face and we have to make the plan. It doesn't mean कि जी हम कुछ कर नहीं सकते। तो वो बच्चों का जो न्यूट्रिशन का लेवल है, जो उनको फीड करने का, वो आपके पास जो स्पेस है वो कम होती जाएगी। जब कम होती जाएगी वो फिगर भी बढ़ती जाएगी। जब वो फिगर बढ़ती जाएगी तो वो बच्चे जो आज हम बाहर भेजते हैं, जो रेमिटेंस आती है, और अगर यही सिचुएशन रही तो जो आपकी रेमिटेंस है वो 60% ड्रॉप हो जाएगी। बिकॉज आप उनको जो इंटरनेशनल, एक तो वैसे टू बी ऑनेस्ट आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस की वजह से द जॉब्स आर गेटिंग लेस डे बाय डे, so you have to stand on your feet and doing something which is, तो हमारी जब वो कम होगी वो भी हमें हिट करेगी, जो रेमिटेंस की बात, बिकॉज हमारे बच्चे इतने नहीं जा सकेंगे बाहर और हम इतने लोग नहीं भेज सकेंगे, यहाँ जॉब नहीं दे सकेंगे। तो ये दोनों चीजें जो हैं, इट्स अ वेरी वेरी अलार्मिंग, बट इट डजंट मीन कि गवर्नमेंट को रियलाइजेशन नहीं है। टू बी ऑनेस्ट, गवर्नमेंट को है, बट वी आर नाउ इन अ सिचुएशन दैट होपफुली द बजट इज गोइंग टू स्लाइटली टफ, लेकिन वी होप कि एटलीस्ट जो हमने लास्ट ईयर गलतियां की हैं वो हम इस साल ना कर सके। और इस साल जो बजट है बड़ा डिफरेंट बजट है, बिकॉज पहले क्या होता था कि बजट जो है, जो बजट बनाता था वही इंप्लीमेंट करता था। But this year, the budget has been made by Finance Ministry, और उसको implement जो है वो FPR करेगा या और agencies वो करेंगी मिलके, which is a honestly a good thing. लेकिन वही बात है कि इंसान को मायूस नहीं होना चाहिए. मैंने जो फिगर दी है, जो बातचीत की है, वैसे भी मायूस होना गुनाह है, और we can hope for the best कि इस सब सिचुएशन से जो हमारे पास स्पेस है इस वक्त, जो हम इस वक्त कर सकते हैं, we have a lot of potential still, but hopefully I can just say कि अल्लाह करे कि ये साल हमारे लिए जो बजट है वो और ये क्लाइमेट चेंज के उससे भी बेहतर है. So thank you so much. If there is anything.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. I think you have apne bilkul perfectly have also concluded the discussion that we've been having since the afternoon. और sir, once again आपका बहुत शुक्रिया हमारे पास आने का. fully understanding आपने challenges भी बताए, also the solution fully understanding कि एक चीज हम सबको पता है कि definitely the fiscal space is limited and we have to work things out. So with this, once again, let me thank all of you for joining us. हमसे पहले कुछ लोग जा भी चुके हैं. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And please do join us for the lunch. It's served on the right. आप लोग किचन में जाके you can take and come back to your seats. Thank you, जी. Thank you, everyone.